Let's talk about luck for just a minute. If you're not familiar with Jim Collins, he's a student and a teacher of what makes great companies tick. He wrote a book called Great by Choice, in which he distinguishes between three kinds of luck that can each be good or bad. He says there is what luck, there is how luck, and there is who luck. So what luck is the luck that happens to you? It's when you get sick unexpectedly, or you find out you've inherited some money you didn't know was coming. It's the external events that happen to all of us. We don't have any control over that kind of luck. The second kind of luck is how luck. This is how we respond to the what luck. So we have some control over this because our responses are always our choices. But since how luck is tied to what luck, we don't have total control over all of it, right? Because we don't know when what luck is going to hit us, whether it's good or bad. But then Collins talks about what he calls the most valuable kind of luck. It's who luck. He says, and I quote, "One of the things I believe in is you get not just luck in life, but who luck. And who luck is when you come across somebody who changes your trajectory or invests in you, bets on you, gives you guidance and key points." And Collins then goes on to insist that who luck is something we can influence through the people we surround ourselves with. That we get to choose the places we go, we get to choose the people we meet, and who we invite into our lives. And Collins argues that if you have the right who's in your life, then you can handle any what's and any how's that come your way. Welcome to Journey at Home, where we create content to help you live a better life and hopefully put some good who's in your life. Great to have you with us. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of this helpful content, because better begins right here. That is our goal. Speaking of that, this is episode 2 of our series, Better Begins Here. We all have areas of our lives that we hope get better in the next 12 months, but to get better, we have to know what's keeping us from being better. So I posed a question to you in the last episode. What are you holding on to that's holding you back? And why won't you let go of it, even though you know it's keeping you from the better you want? Well, the answer, as unsettling as this may be for all of us to hear, is that whatever we're holding on to has mastered us. It controls us. Otherwise, think about it. You just let go of it, right? But Jesus invites us to a different way of thinking and living. He invites us to surrender to Him, to choose Him as our master, and promises that if we do that, it's going to lead to freedom. Or the way we often say it around here is following Jesus will make your life better and make you better at life. Now, following Jesus isn't easy. Believing in Jesus, that's pretty easy. But following or obeying, well, that's challenging, which is why Jesus taught that following is not a solo journey. In other words, Jesus said, you better be traveling through life with the right who's helping you. Now, most of us assume that in order to get better, we need to focus on the what and the why. I need to identify what I ought to do, then I need to identify why I should do it and how I'm going to do it, and that's going to keep me motivated to grow. For example, if you want to get in shape, you figure out what exercise plan you're going to follow, what diet you want to follow, and you try to keep yourself motivated by reminding yourself why it matters. The problem with that approach, though, is you're missing a critical piece. The number one predictor of success is actually who you're doing it with. So let me ask you, are there some people in your life who are exercising and eating like you need to? Now, you've experienced this before, right? If you've got those people, it's a lot better. I bet all of you could tell me about a person or a few people who over the course of your life, they have made a profound positive impact on you. Maybe it was your parents, maybe it was a coach, a teacher who believed in you. Could have been a boss who mentored you, a friend who encouraged you. And you might go so far as to say they are a big reason why you are where you are today. You might even say God sent them into your life. Now, on the other hand, I bet you can think back to every bad or painful decision you made in your life. And you didn't make those decisions in isolation either, did you? No, you made those unwise decisions with somebody, or you were influenced by somebody. You went down those roads because you listened to somebody you knew you shouldn't listen to. They encouraged you to do it. You knew it wasn't good advice, but you wanted to hear what you wanted to hear, so you went with it. You convinced yourself it was the thing to do. See, we don't make any of our good or bad decisions in isolation. We almost always make them in community. Who you listen to influences what you do. This is why Jim Collins says you better influence your who luck in the right way, because the who's around you are going to change you. So if you want a better life, you need some better who's. Some better who's who either have or are working to have the same better life that you have and you want. But Jim Collins, he did not invent this idea. He didn't even discover it. 2,000 years ago, the writer of Hebrews gave us this advice. He says, let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess. For he who promised, talking about God, is faithful. In other words, if you want a better life, let go of what's holding you back and don't go back to it. Don't look back at it. Don't be on and off. Better comes from following Jesus and his way of life, and you can't be inconsistent in that. You can't be swerving up and down, all around. But that's easier said than done, isn't it? When we try to get better in any area of life, it usually looks like a roller coaster of big peaks and valleys. You know, I'm up one minute doing great, I'll just bottom out the next. I do well for a few weeks or months, and then it's like everything falls apart. I'm focused for a while, and then I'm swerving all over the place. But you and I both know people whose journey looks a lot more like a steady climb. What's their secret? Well, these are people who go through dips, but they're not as big, they're not as deep. And what's interesting is they have the same situations and circumstances as the rest of us. They deal with the same discouragements, the same distractions we do. In some cases, they deal with situations that are worse. But instead of getting distracted following Jesus, they just keep growing and growing, getting better and better. What's the difference? I bet you can guess. One big differentiator that we consistently find is the whos they have chosen to put in their life. See, it's really hard to get better in any area of life if the people around you are going in the opposite direction of what you want to go. It's hard to have a better marriage if you are surrounded by people who are miserable in their marriage. It's hard to be a better student if you're surrounded by people who don't study. It's hard to be more generous if you're surrounded by people who aren't generous. It's hard to be better at forgiving if you're surrounded by people who hold grudges. It's hard to be better at following Jesus if you're surrounded by people who are just going through the motions. See, people with a better life surround themselves with a support system of people who also want the same better life. And those people keep them from swerving or dipping too far when things get hard. Because again, who you listen to, it always influences what you do. And you have total control over who's in your life. The writer of Hebrews, he pointed this out to us. He wrote, let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. Not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Now, he's not talking about showing up on Sunday for a church service just sitting in a row of people, okay? That's a start, but that does not get the job done. He is talking about finding a small group of whos, building a little community of whos that decide we're going to do life together and we are going to encourage each other to live the better life Jesus invites us to live. This is why we believe it's so important to have people of all ages, all stages, in circles and not just rows every week. So at Journey, we don't do Sunday school for kids. We're not interested in putting kids in rows and somebody teaching them more knowledge. We want to put them in circles. We want to give them the knowledge, but then we want to help them build relationships with other kids and small group leaders who are going to help them learn how to apply that knowledge and build their faith. That's why in our middle school and our high school environments, we intentionally program those so they'll spend more time in conversation than they do listening to somebody on stage talking. Because we want to build relationships with adults and friends who help them be better and apply everything Jesus is teaching them. And that is why I hope every one of you end up with this kind of community one day, where you're surrounded by friends who want to follow Jesus and live a better life. Because that is what it's going to take for you to have the better life you want to. Spiritual growth, it's actually not super complicated. It happens best through relationships with other people who are growing spiritually. Your friendships are always going to determine the quality and direction of your faith. Who will always influence what you do. So, let me ask you some questions just to get you thinking, okay? Who in your life regularly encourages you to love God and to love people better? I mean, think about the people you spend the most time with. Do they encourage and model what it looks like to live a better life? Are you surrounded by friends who encourage you to invest in your marriage when you want to mail it in? Or are they just going through the motions too because they're waiting on the kids to leave the house or the in-laws' inheritance to show up before they walk out of their marriage? Do you have any friends whose marriage inspires yours to be better? Do your friends encourage you to forgive when somebody hurts you? Or do they fuel the resentment, the anger, and the bitterness inside of you? Do your friends inspire you with their generosity? Do they inspire you with the way they serve and put others before themselves? Or are they always dragging you back into the cycle of making everything about you? Do your friends make you better? or worse? Are you better or worse financially because of them? Is your character better or worse because you're surrounded by them? Are you better at following Jesus because of the who's you've surrounded yourself with? Now listen, if the answer to those questions is no, not really, I'm not saying your friends are bad people. They're not. But you may need to add some new who's to your life. You need to find some people who want to be better or are better the way you want to be better, and they're going to help you get there. I mean, you cannot overcome what's holding you back from a better life without following Jesus alongside some people who are going to encourage you and are walking in the same direction. As much as you and I want to be independent, we need each other. Life's better when we do it together because who you listen to influences what you do. So here's what I know. The right who's will make the next 12 months of your life far better for you. The right who's will help you reach the end of that 12-month period, a better you. So be wise. Surround yourself with people who are going to make you better. That is a choice. That is a kind of who luck that is entirely in your control. Better begins right here.